To order. We are missing right now Commissioner Carter, who I'm not sure where he's at. I texted him. I gave him 5 minutes to, as a courtesy, but we're going to get started. We have Commissioner Duggan on the call, Vice Chair Duggan on the call, and we have Dr. Kim Lyerly on the call. So for all of us voting today, I think we've got two motions and one action and two motions to make. So we will need to do that by roll call vote. Lois, do you have the roll call? I'll let you call that roll so you can keep the record of the votes for the minutes. And Mr. Carter is here. Very good. I gave you 5 minutes. You did it.
Appreciate it.
Very good. Okay, so let me get started with the call to order and the conflict of interest statement. North Carolina General Statute 138A-15 mandates that at the beginning of any meeting of a board, the chair shall remind all members of their duty to avoid conflicts of interest under the subchapter. Chair shall also inquire as to whether there are any known conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the board at this time. So do we have any conflicts of interest that you hear about? Okay, very good. Commissioner Duggan, any conflict on your end? Commissioner Lyerly? None?
No, sir.
Very good, thank you. Okay. So with that, a couple things on the agenda. You see the agenda is very short. My intention today as chair is to keep it very short. I'll need participation from each of y'all to keep it short. So let's try to make it as efficient as possible today. Unfortunately, we had a full committee day yesterday, as everybody knows. But the way things had kind of worked in November and January, there was not a lot on our agenda today. So we wanted to have this meeting. And I'll say off the bat, I do appreciate Commissioner Bailey, Commissioner Duggan, Commissioner Yarborough. I know you guys came in from a distance just for yesterday and a very light day today, but I do appreciate you guys all making it face to face. I think we really needed that yesterday. And I think we need that just as we bond and get to know each other too. So I'm glad you guys were all here. So we do appreciate that. First thing I will say is we're going to delay approval of the minutes until the next meeting, until May. I'll just leave it at this. We need to work out some process things with our minutes. They were some unusual events in November and January. We had the holidays, and timeline just was not fair to have given y'all those a couple days after Commissioner Duggan had cleaned them up a little bit. They still need work, so we're just going to put them off, and you'll see 3 sets in May. Any objection to that or any concerns with that? Okay.
Chair, if I may.
Where'd that come from? Yes, Commissioner Duggan. Yes, sir.
Yes.
I was looking around for you, man. Sorry.
Folks, I just want to apologize for not getting the minutes to you sooner. What I obviously still learning the process here. So the March minutes will be timely at the May meeting once I get these minutes out. And as Chair Solomon said, we're going to work on some processes. But what I did is obviously I did not take anything out of the context. Was just rewording it to put it into a third person, so to speak. I think that the minutes can get as close to correct as possible with a reference for any direct quotes to be made to the recording or the official recording. So, I know now what it takes to go through those minutes, and we'll make sure that we get them timely to you going forward.
And I think for Vice Chair Duggan's sake too, I'll take credit for all of that, all the bad. He had his end to do, but we also had some things with the department and the whole process, and that's my responsibility to make sure that gets going well. So we'll have it better next time. And we've already talked to, Richard and I have already talked a little bit about that as well. So we'll be better next time. Okay. So with that, a couple things I want to say, out of the gate on the agenda and some of the things that I think we've kind of been through. But first thing I think for us to keep in mind is let's continue to give each other the benefit of the doubt in the way we do things. We have some very tough topics, not just complex, meaning many parts, but difficult. And these are impacting a lot of the regulated community with cost. And they're going to take affect people for decades. And that's everything from the emerging contaminants to the interbasin transfers and some other things as well. So we're going to say things in the debates that we probably shouldn't say at times. Nobody's going to be perfect. I just, intentions are good, I believe. And when I look around the table, we've got a lot of really smart people, a lot of education, a lot of experience, and every one of us are very accomplished. And so I don't think there's ill intention here, but we will say things we don't do. Please work it out on the side. I don't think we need to drag that in public, but just give everybody the doubt with what we're doing. The other thing I would say that we need to just, again, this is a long game. These issues take a year, 2 years to work out. But it's easy to talk, and I'm guilty of this too. It's hard to listen. And so we've got, whatever we hear each other say, it's easy sometimes to think we'll just convince that person to come our way. But if we're hearing it here, either way, either side or either feeling you have, we're probably going to hear it in the public when these things go to the public. So it's much better if we try to listen to each other and try to work with each other to find solutions. And that way we'll have less comments from the public, hopefully, or at least we'll reduce those as much as possible. So I want to say that off the bat. The next thing, and I've got two more, but one is on committees. So we talked about this in orientation back in December for the newer members, but say it again. So we've got 4 standing committees because we don't want to have a meeting of the whole. We've never wanted to do that. That'd be a whole EMC. So we keep 7 people there, which when you do the math, everybody can't serve officially, but on 2 committees. Okay, to keep that number under the EMC quorum. So that's how that works. The committees are there to do the brunt of the work or as much as they can to keep it easier for this whole commission. But remember, the votes of the committee are not binding actions on the whole. We have to vote as a full EMC, all 15 of us, to make it binding. So we can get wrapped up in committee, we can argue in committee, we can have good discussions in committee, we can either vote to approve it in committee, but the real vote that counts is when it gets to the EMC. And I just remind you of that because I know everybody can't be on a committee. Now, within the committee structure, and this has gone back and forth over the decades, but when I first got on the commission, and this was Ben Hudson and Steve Rowland era as chairman, and Jenny Hoosier, who was our counsel back then, their policy was that if you weren't a committee member, that you didn't sit at the horseshoe, that you sat in the audience, and that you had no more rights in the audience as any other member for the chair to recognize you. And when I came on board, I fought with Jenny several months, but I prevailed and said, we can advertise this because I thought it was the most horrible thing in the world, disrespectful for members to be in the audience and to be put in the audience. We should be able to sit up here and we should be able to ask a question if we wish, right? With that said though, and where we can go too far is Roberts is very clear, right? Once we get into the deliberations, once we get into motions, right? It is just the members that are supposed to be deliberating and speaking. Just the members. So that's got to govern what we do in that sense. Had another point on that, but I can't remember what it was. But at the end of the day, if you're not a member, I want you to be able to sit up here, right, to listen and engage when you can. But the other charge I was going to say is I've charged, and all chairs do this, charge the committee chairs to run that meeting as efficiently and effectively as possible. And so their job is to get on through, and they're going to respect the members of the committee first. That's just how things have to work to be efficient. Now, I've been on both ends of that stick. I've been on the lean side of it and the fat side of that thing. So I think if you're in from out of town, you're going to be here anyway. You want to sit through the meetings, you need to sit here in the meetings. I think if you have a special interest in that meeting, you should come to those meetings. Right? But you should not feel obligated. We said that back in December. It is not an obligation if you're not on that committee to have to come in the meeting and engage in debate. That's not what you're there to do. So we want you to come, but you don't have to come if you're not a member. And you'll see me when I wasn't a member of the committee and I wasn't chairman, I didn't come to a lot of committee meetings that weren't my own committee meeting. That was my prerogative. So I just want to say that. I don't think anybody's trying to do anything bad with that and don't want feelings to get hurt. But we're a little loose with it, and that's okay, because we let everybody just kind of come in and sit. But those committee chairs, as we get full, are going to have to run their meetings as efficiently as possible. So let's give each other the benefit of the doubt and think we're all going to a positive solution, okay? So with that said, after thinking about it last night and talking to Director Rogers and Chair Keene of the Water Quality Committee, we do plan to have a virtual meeting or hybrid meeting of the Water Quality Committee on April 9th. The purpose of that meeting will be to hopefully move the Salisbury action and the wetland action out of committee in April so that it can be heard by the full commission in May. And the committee, more importantly, will have those two things off its agenda so that anything we do with the triennial review has a little bit more time in May. So that'll be the primary objective. Director Rogers, I've told him that if he's got anything on the kind of the mandated wastewater allocation adjustment to that rule, or if, as Commissioner Deerhake asked yesterday, if there's any draft information on any of the triennial review updates, be great to have it at that meeting, but we don't intend to debate that at that meeting as much as if we have it, we can share information. Okay. So that's the intent of that meeting. And the overall intent is to make sure that the May Water Quality Committee meeting has as much time to other issues as possible. Okay. Not opening it up to a lot of debate, but any other questions or comments to that? Give me the benefit of the doubt if I stepped on anybody's toes.
Mr. Chairman, do you have a time for that meeting?
Not yet. Not yet. It will be available virtual. And Commissioner Keene may not be able to attend in person, and it may fall to the vice chair to run that meeting, but that's okay.
Did you say it's going to be on April 9th,
On April 9th.
the Monday?
That's the Tuesday. Okay. Other comments or questions? Commissioner Duggan, Commissioner Lowerly, Vice Chair Duggan, Commissioner Lowerly.
No, sir.
No comment.
Okay. All right, well, hearing none, I just lost my agenda. I think we're ready for our first action item, our first agenda item. Yes, Karen, please come up, and I think I'm going to call it the bucket list because that's what I've always called it, but do your official action. My Adobe just went down on my computer here. I don't know why.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Karen Higgins. I work with the Division of Water Resources. I have a two-part item for you all today. So the first is to request a waiver. This is for the Environmental Management Commission bylaws that require 30 days in between rulemaking actions. So we're requesting that the EMC approve a waiver of their 30-day requirement on this item in order to expedite the review process.
Background on that before we entertain a motion for that. This is a multi-step process. And as I think if you heard in committee yesterday, the committee's got to approve the rules as necessary or not necessary so that department can work with the RRC to develop the rulemaking schedule. The actual modifications to the rules will come at a later time and come back through the committee for you guys to rule the actual rules and then back to the EMC, hopefully with the full 60 days of meeting in between so that we can have time to absorb those. One of the things that we, again, Phil and I feel strongly, we just did the rules review. It's 10 years. It's amazing whoever got that right, but it feels like it takes us about 3 or 4 years to get through it. So we just did this a few years ago. And so Karen's got these pretty much in good shape, and I didn't see a reason just to delay any further. That hurts the staff's schedule as well. So probably on most of these, and I've talked to Assistant Secretary Mazemore about that. I would like to do this more often on this first round of rules here and save our 30-day waiver, or not do a 30-day waiver on the future rules when the rules actually get written. So this is just one way to keep it moving for our benefit and staff's. So any questions or comments for Ms. Higgins or myself? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve a 30-day waiver?
This is Commissioner Bailey. I so move to approve a waiver of the 30-day requirement on this item in order to expedite the review process.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Baumgartner seconds. We have a motion and a second. Now discussion on the motion. Okay, I can see everybody here. Commissioner Duggan, any comments or any discussion on the motion?
No, sir?
Commissioner Lyerly, any comments or discussion on the motion?
None.
Okay, very good. Any further discussion from the room? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Lois, if you'll call the roll, we need to do a roll call vote here.
Let's, Commissioner Bailey,
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Desiree,
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner King,
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Reardon,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss. Aye. And Commissioner Yarber.
Aye. Okay. You got two more on the phone. Ms. Thomas? Only. Commissioner Duggan?
Aye.
Commissioner Lyerly?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous then. Okay, please proceed, Ms. Higgins.
All right. As Chair Solomon said, the general statute requires rules be reviewed every 10 years. There's 3 steps: the agency review, the RRC review, and then a legislative review. The agency review is where we are now. We're asked to place rules in one of 2 buckets: unnecessary or necessary. Once we make that initial determination, we send that out to public notice and accept comments for 60 days. Once that is over, we finalize the report, including a response to comments. You all will vote on that, and then we will send it to the RRC. The RRC will review all the information provided by the EMC, the public comments, and our response to comments. They will make a determination, and they will submit that report to the legislative committee. The legislative committee has 60 days to approve the report. If they don't meet within that 60 days, then the RRC report becomes the final report. This is an example of the report. You all have the full, all the columns in your attachments, but just looking at the columns that are filled in, the first 4 or 5 rows, 4 rows, just provide information about the rule, the subchapter, the rule section, the rule citation, and the rule name. The 5th column includes the date and the last agency action on the rule. The 6th column is the agency's initial determination of necessary or unnecessary. And then the last 2 columns that you see on the right, the report asks whether a rule is necessary to implement or conform to federal law. This is a requirement for the RRC to report to the legislature. So they ask for the agencies to fill in this information and then to provide a federal citation if applicable. So this is a pretty large group of rules. So I've got 3 subchapters listed up here. The 2B rules are the surface water and wetland standard rules. The initial determination is that all 114 rules are necessary. The 2T rules are the waste not discharged to surface water rules. There's 98 in there. Those are all categorized as necessary. The O2U rules are for the reclaimed water program. There's 33 rules in that subchapter, and those are all listed as necessary. The 2H rules are the procedure for permits. There are 112 rules in this subchapter. 109 are listed as necessary and 3 are listed as unnecessary. The 3 unnecessary are listed on the slide. The first 2 are related to the Stormwater Fast Track Permitting Program. Session Law 2023-134 retracted the authority for that program. So those rules were determined to be unnecessary. The third rule there is connected to the isolated wetland and water rules. That particular rule is only applicable to wetlands. So again, with Session Law 2023-63, that rule was determined to be unnecessary. So here's the timeline. Yesterday, we went to the Water Quality Committee and Waste Management went to the Groundwater Waste Management Committee. Both committees approved the reports to proceed to the EMC, so we're here today. If approved, we'll file tomorrow. The public comment period will begin sometime next week, run for 60 days. We'll come back to the EMC for final adoption of the report in September. The report's due to the RRC in September for review in October. And with that, the request is to approve to proceed to public comment with the rule review reports for O2B, O2H, O2T, and O2U. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Steve, you got one? Mr. King? Okay. Mr. Smith?
One question. Can you talk a little bit about the, I guess it's the is it 2H 1306 rule, the soil rule, and its relationship to the wetlands legislation?
Yes. So I'm not going to remember all my years of when things happened, but around 2014, 2015 timeframe, there were some changes to the isolated wetland permitting rules requiring different triggers for written concurrence to be covered under that isolated wetland permit. And the way the rule was written, it had different triggers for mountain, Piedmont, and coastal areas. And at the time, the EMC made the decision that to determine whether it was coastal, Piedmont, or wetland, they did it by county. But there was an interest in having, if a particular piece of property was near the edge, for example, between Piedmont and coastal, and they wanted the coastal trigger, which was higher, that they could do a survey of the property based on the soils with a soil scientist to demonstrate that it met coastal characteristics. And so in order to do that, the soil series in North Carolina were all categorized as mountain, Piedmont, or coastal soil series for purposes of application triggers for the isolated wetland rules. So since there's no longer triggers for isolated wetland permitting, the determination was that the soil series rule was not necessary.
Mr. Smith?
So one follow-up question, I guess, but does the report recommend designating the other isolated wetlands rules as unnecessary?
They do not. The other rules, it's for isolated wetlands and waters. And so this is the only rule that was applicable or triggered, whatever, needed for wetlands only.
Thanks.
Sure.
Yes.
Could you go back to your timeline slide?
Yes.
So from the public notice process, public comment process, what what sort, I'm guessing that it's likely there or possible that public comments could impel us to make some sort of change to the rule. What would that process be? Is that dictated by the RRC?
So the way the statute reads, if a rule goes out to public comment as necessary, it cannot be changed to unnecessary. If the rule goes out to public comment as unnecessary and we receive a public comment, it gets moved to necessary. So if we receive a, and I think the way it reads, if we get a public comment on any rule, it will be categorized as necessary.
Okay, but there was the third bucket necessary with changes, and that's been removed.
Yes, so there were three buckets. It was unnecessary, necessary without substantive interest, and necessary with substantive interest. The ones that were necessary without substantive interest did not have to go through readoption. So that category has been removed.
Okay.
So unnecessary rules get removed from the administrative code by the codifier. Necessary rules go through readoption. And readoption can be to simply keep the rule as it is, to amend the rule, or to repeal the rule at that time.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Mr. Lowerly, Vice Chair Duggan, anything from you guys? Any questions for staff?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Here none, let's call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to move these rules to public notice for the periodic review. Do I need to list all the
For
rules?
the request, you could just read what's right there or tell them to use it.
Yeah, use that.
Okay, I think we all see the motion. Commissioner Ellison makes the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. King makes a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Well, Lois, if you'll do the roll, please.
Commissioner Bailey,
Aye.
Commissioner Baumgartner,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Commissioner Derrick. Aye. Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner King,
Aye.
Commissioner Duggan,
Aye. Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Lowerly,
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson. Aye. Commissioner Reardon,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Tweedy,
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss. Aye. And Commissioner Yarborough.
Aye.
Okay. Motion's unanimous. Motion passes. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I think that concludes our action items, correct, Counselor? And now we will hear on a topic on the governor's executive order, I believe. Let me say before Director Rogers says anything, typically what we've done as a general rule with the MC is when we get the executive orders, as soon as we can, we would like to bring those before the EMC. Normally, we would put it before committee first, if for no other reason than it usually takes 30, 60, 90 days for the department to figure out what it means for them and all the other departments working together. So this is a little preliminary. We had a full agenda with Water Allocation Committee yesterday, which we were going to put it there yesterday, and then hear the full report maybe in May. The way it worked out, we moved it to this agenda, but now it's kind of sits here by itself. So I don't want to make excuses for him, but I don't think we have all the details known yet, and I do think we'll hear more details in May. But Commissioner Rogers, correct me or proceed on with the.
Mr. Chair, you're exactly correct. We are working through this. We're excited about the executive order and are working with the Department of Natural Resources and to develop a plan, and we'll be welcome to come back to the commission at a later date to update you on that. So we wanted to provide the executive order for your contact so that you would at least have access to it, and then we'll come back and provide more details on the implementation.
Okay. Questions? Commissioner Baumgartner, I know you had a question.
Yes, actually I did. reading through the executive order, I mean, I applaud the efforts of land protection and also the GIS effort. It seems like you guys are in implore for identifying wetlands and seeing what some of the, those characteristics are, what we need to be concerned about going forward. I guess my concern, and I know this is going to shock you, but there is some mistrust in the regulatory community about how things go down sometimes. And that's not a shocking statement. But when the definition states to the effect that the state and federal law, that this definition does not depend on state and federal law, is intended to be a broader in scope than current law, and dips down to section 5 and talks about the things that the cabinet agencies need to do from there. What is the intent of that? Because there, I guess, is some concern about how that's going to be played out.
I think we're in the process of discerning all that, and it is an executive order. And my reading of it, he wants to be a bit more expansive in our assessment and our look at wetlands, and looking at how we can conserve for resiliency purposes and for natural resources as well. So we will come back and address that as well as we move forward.
Okay. I guess the concern as you're looking at it is the broader than current law.
Right.
And making sure that we are state of laws and rules and that we do follow.
I don't think there's any intention of not abiding by the law, but I think from a perspective and looking at it holistically, that we need to take a larger scope as we move forward and looking at protecting resources for North Carolina, as well as flood prevention.
Okay. No, we don't have all the details. Any other questions?
Absolutely.
Richard?
I think
Mr. Smith.
More just a comment that, as I understand it, and we've talked about this a little bit in the context of amending the EMC definition of wetlands in 2B. There's a difference between the definition of wetlands as a physical presence on the landscape and the regulatory jurisdiction. So that's the way I read this, that it's getting to what the definition of a wetland is. And then there's the separate issue of what the regulatory authority is to do whatever, whether it's require permits. And that has to be founded in law. That clearly is the case.
Additional comments or questions? Any other questions of the department at this point? Okay, so we'll listen, look for another presentation probably in May, and don't know that you'll have all the details worked out by then either, but hopefully you'll be able to give us a little bit more indication of mapping and other things y'all may be doing.
We'll do our best, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I believe that takes care of all our formal agenda for action and information. Any other questions or comments at this point from EMC? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go to director reports. We'll go with Demler first. You're not Toby.
Not Toby. Can be Toby if you want me to be.
Oh, no, you don't want to be Toby. You don't want to be Toby.
No, I'm Brad Cole. I'm the section chief for the regional operations. Toby had another meeting also today, so we're kind of dividing and conquering today. We do have a few informational items. Two of our 4 programs have some info. Dam safety program. So FEMA has announced that it's making $185 million available nationwide for high hazard potential dams for repair, modification, and or removal in the next year. North Carolina will be offered the full amount of what we qualify for. We don't know what that is yet because they haven't given it to us. But we do know that other states are applying and how many, but it all comes down to whatever their formula is. Let's see. Let's go to the stormwater program. So right now we're preparing our NPDES general permit renewal for NCG01, which is our construction stormwater, and NCG 25, which is construction stormwater, which does not require a sediment erosion control permit. And that's in April when that expires. So right now we're putting together a stakeholder group for those permits, but we're not anticipating any big changes to those. Also NCG 16, which is the asphalt paving. NCG 1,700 textile mills, 1,800 furniture manufacturing, and NCG 20 scrap metal. They all expired at the end of May and will be renewed for June. And also, we don't anticipate a lot of changes in those.
Can I ask you a
Yeah,
question?
sure.
Can you guys keep us posted on how that's moving? Because it seems like a short timeline.
It is.
And I know that there's quite a few people that have already called me out of the construction business, not knowing what the changes are going to be yet. So, ounce of prevention, right? So if you can let us know
Absolutely.
when the time's right, it would be just helpful to have us informed.
Okay. Also for our stormwater program, we're rounding out we're finalizing our Access DEQ online permitting process for construction stormwater. That should be done within the next 2 or 3 months. And that's going to complement the new system, which is already online for the sediment and erosion control. It went live November 1st. So what this means, this will allow applicants who are applying for our sediment erosion control and they also need NCG 01, they will only have to do a single permit process for anything coming through Denver. Now, other projects that are the erosion control originates in local programs across the state, they'll still have to come online to the DEQ portal to make those active. So that's some good news and some more efficiencies coming up for some of those people. Also, stormwater program again. Our post-construction stormwater permitting will begin implementing the new permit review timelines, which were put in last session. They'll start on July 1, 2024. This legislation reduces our permit review period from 90 days to 70 days. And it also reduces an additional review after that initial. It goes from 90 days to 30 days. So it's a significant decrease. I guess on average, it's a 50% reduction in review time. So the same legislation and the budget did not provide any additional personnel resources to address this review and period change. And this is going to be a challenge for our staff given the existed and the expected project workload we have. So just we're working on some ways to try to make sure things don't disappear under the rug and get approved without even looking at them. But we're trying to come up with some new and innovative ideas.
How much of that, out of curiosity, I mean, the economy's kind of not flattened, it's still strong in a lot of sectors, but it has flattened a little bit. How much of that's related to the ARPA funding or any kind of special federal pass-throughs that, we got a lot of projects going on. Is that creating an extra burden on your staff?
For our sediment and erosion control primarily, we're seeing quite a few projects come through that are ARPA related. It's received some additional support for that those ARPA projects through additional staff, I guess time limited staff due to the nature of those type of projects. But in our post-construction, we really haven't seen a whole lot because most of the ARPA projects are related to, your linear projects, your water plants, treatment plants, things like that. And those typically don't require much of a post-construction for those.
Very good.
But we haven't seen any slowdown with a post-construction stormwater program. Last year, we approved the most that I've been tracking since, I think, 2018. So
Okay, very good.
Still running pretty strong.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Commissioner Ellison.
How much money is the FEMA grant for the high hazard dams?
185 million nationwide.
Okay.
And I believe last I heard there were, I think, 35 states that applied for it. That is the most they've ever had. So I guess that means we'll get a little bit smaller piece of the pie.
So what's your timeline for knowing how much you might have and coming out with some sort of program?
We're hoping to hear any day. It's all in the hands of FEMA and they let us know when they're ready to let us know.
And this will be a grant program?
Yes.
And will there be, are you going to use that money in an existing program or will it be its own kind of standalone temporary program?
We already have a HPD grant program that it's just adding more to it. I think right now, we're one of the big projects. We've got a nice loan out to Lake Lure, or grant to Lake Lure, to help with some of their issues, amongst others. It's a very narrow focus on who can apply for those and who can get those grants.
Okay. One other question on the stormwater permitting and erosion sediment control. So that's going to be combined, kind of like a joint application? Is that how I'm understanding?
Yes, as far as the person that's submitting an application, that's what it'll look like to them. In-house, it is two different processes, but if average Joe that's submitting their project's going to be seeing one process.
Okay, and your timeline is roughly 60?
2 or 3 months.
2 to 3 months. Okay.
It's in the final stages. Hopefully we see something even sooner than that.
Sounds like an improvement. Thank you.
It absolutely is an improvement. We're excited about that because that's been a big complaint since they were separated years ago.
Very good. All right. Yes, Commissioner Yarborough.
Just a compliment to your group. We had a meeting with,
Yes, sir.
about permitting with projects that have soil and water impact as well, and they're part of that proposal. And I know you're working on that, and I just want to thank you for it.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Our pleasure.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you all very much.
All right, Director Scott, next on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Just a few updates today. I did want to let the commission know that Ed Musler, our solid waste section chief, is going to be retiring at the end of this month. So Ed has brought extensive engineering expertise and experience to the division, while also being instrumental in North Carolina's transition from coal ash impoundments to line industrial landfills. He's made significant contributions in the world of materials management across his 30-year career, and we're really excited for Ed starting this next new chapter, but we're also going to miss him. So he's been a great colleague and a valued friend. We do continue to coordinate across other DEQ programs on the Pactiv Evergreen plant site in Kenton, North Carolina. We've been working with EPA and Pactiv to address fuel oil and black liquor impacts at the site. The remedial work to address the fuel impacts is near completion, and we're working on additional assessment with EPA and Pactiv regarding the black liquor releases at the site. So a lot of work there, important site for the state and definitely for that town of Canton. Our division did present at the General Assembly's Environmental Review Commission back on February the 7th regarding landfill capacity in North Carolina and the status of the solar decommissioning program that we've updated this commission on. The solar program will have proposed rules drafted by the spring of this year to share with stakeholders during the DEQ public comment period. So things are moving forward on that solar decommissioning program. And in wrapping up, our division's work does continue on PFAS and continues to expand across the state. As we noted at the last EMC Commission meeting, private well testing for PFAS has expanded through our Bernard Allen program and also through the work of permittees across the state. So more information to come on this important topic, and appreciate the Groundwater Committee's attention and review of the informational item related to PFAS yesterday. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. Carter?
Yeah, Mr. Director, I've just run it or noticed or saw in the press, there's been a 90-day notice of intent to sue over the Sampson County landfill.
Yeah.
Can you fill us in on that, or is that a facility y'all are looking at? Have you issued NOVs? What is the status and the situation there?
Yeah, the landfill Commissioner Carter is referring to is the Sampson County GFL landfill outside of Clinton, North Carolina, closer to Roseboro. And so that particular facility has been part of DEQ's statewide efforts to sample sanitary landfills for PFAS. That would be municipal solid waste landfills, construction demolition, and industrial landfills. There have been other entities, universities that have also sampled in that area for emerging compounds. I received a copy of the document you're referring to, Commissioner Carter. Southern Environmental Law Center is representing their local organization under the RCRA, federal RCRA requirements, with a 30-day petition of a lawsuit against that facility for discharges of PFAS to the environment. And there's other concerns in that document. It's not a filed suit, as you understand, Commissioner Carter. It's a petition. My understanding is the two parties are meeting to further discussions regarding that submittal, and they've been keeping us updated on the status of that.
But you're, I guess I better get this down. But I didn't hear you say that the state hasn't taken any specific position, issued an NOV or anything.
We've not taken tiered enforcement against the facility, to answer your question. DEQ's been very active in collaborating with the permittee to sample for emerging compounds, as all other sanitary landfills are across the state, over 200 facilities. So GFL is just one of them. GFL has taken samples for emerging compounds as we've requested. DEQ did split some samples at this facility with them. We've also sampled fairly recently some areas near the landfill. Obviously, it's one of North Carolina's largest landfills. PFAS is an active discussion when it comes to municipal solid waste disposal. So there's a need for data to understand the presence of these compounds, and more importantly, if they're leaving the facility or impacting a surrounding community. And so we have also conducted, as DEQ, some limited private well sampling around the facility. We have that data back and have been reviewing it. But like I said, this is statewide work. The facility's been doing additional sampling themselves and submitted a work plan to us for additional work at the facility also.
Okay.
Follow-on question, though, that's a citizen complaint, and I'm not a lawyer here, but that's a complaint, and then it becomes a
It's-
lawsuit later? Is that
it's
what
a
happens? I
30-day
remember that from like some
It's
of
a
the.
30-day petition.
90 days.
90-day petition, thank you, for a potential lawsuit. And so it's under the federal RCRA requirements, basically like a citizen suit provision. Yeah.
Can the state intercede with an SOC or something, or get involved with that kind of agreement or something before it becomes a lawsuit? I mean,
Yeah, I'll probably defer to our legal team on that. As Commissioner Carter asked, we've not issued any, tiered enforcement against the facility. We're looking at assessment data, right? We make informed decisions on actual data. This would be PFAS-related data and other analytical monitoring. And so we have not, at this point, decided to take any formal action based on this petition. It's not a suit yet. The parties are engaged in active communication and keeping us apprised of where those discussions are at.
Okay, that's fine. Commissioner Ellison, got Ellison first, I'll
So-
go to Bailey.
There is no violation? Is that what you're telling us?
I'm saying we have not issued tiered enforcement.
Okay, so what would trigger an NOV for this?
NOV would be triggered by any standards exceedance, North Carolina's groundwater standards, surface water standards, air standards, the different media. So the question was, where are we with the facility? It's a permitted facility for the state. We've not issued any tiered enforcement yet as we review the data.
So what would be your timeline as you review the data? Is this something you would initiate your tiered enforcement within the 90-day window between this notice of intent?
We could, but it also is dependent on the assessment data being complete, finalized, and quality control parameters reviewed. So we could, or we may choose that based on work at the facility is proceeding to better understand if there's releases to the environment, what is necessary and next.
Can I
Commissioner
ask?
Bailey, let's go to Bailey first.
Thank you. I'm actually trying to clarify what he's asking about. We're talking about the notice has to do with the emerging compounds, which is PFOA, PFAS, not everything. And we know from especially yesterday that there are no standards set for that yet for groundwater. And I've heard yesterday also that this is actually one of the facilities where we were looking at, when we're looking at how the rules are going to impact particular regulated entities, it would be with ongoing cleanups as well as the landfills. And like you said, there's over 200 where you're looking at them.
Right.
So can you actually take any action for PFOA or PFAS? I mean, what you've been telling us is that we're in a monitoring situation and we're looking at potential standards of, I just remember 4 and 4, because that's the PQL. So the question is, do you know what the PFOA and PFAS values are at this facility, and are they above 4, which is still not a standard?
Right, right. Great question. The short answer is we can take action, and the department has taken action. So PQL is the standard, is the practical quantitative limit, whether it's 2 part per trillion or as proposed to this commission, 4 part per trillion. And the department has issued tiered enforcement for North Carolina's groundwater requirements on PQL for PFAS. So all of that
At
is
this facility?
not at this facility.
Not at this
At other
facility.
facilities.
Okay.
So the framework is there, the regulatory requirements are there. It's when the assessment data is complete and we have an understanding if they're above the groundwater requirements, if the data is sound, right? These are part per trillion, very low levels, then that decision will be made. But it has been made before at other facilities where necessary.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for that clarification. And also, you're not subject to the 90 days, so you are just proceeding the way you would to make sure everything's correct and accurate.
That's right, but it's important to have an assessment that's complete, and it's also important to have a holistic understanding when we have 200 facilities, and we have data that's coming in almost every week. But we do have a foundational piece, PQL in North Carolina's groundwater requirements, if that's needed based on the analytical data once it's finalized and reviewed. We can take action under that. We would not have to wait on the 90-day piece.
Thank you.
Question, Commissioner Smith.
Actually, I think Mr. Scott addressed one thing. I was just going to say, in terms of the process, this is similar to other citizen suit provisions, and the purpose of the 90-day notice is to give the State Department that has enforcement authority time to determine whether state enforcement is necessary. And the citizen suit can only go forward if the state refuses to take action or takes what the plaintiffs believe to be inadequate action. So that's what that 90 days is all about. It's
Correct.
for the state to decide what it's going to do. And if the state takes action that's completely adequate, there's no basis for a citizen suit going forward.
Okay. Thank you.
And as I
No question.
noted,
That's
we're collecting additional data off-site, meaning outside the landfill, and so we have not seen a direct correlation to off-site PFAS related to the facility. So we do want an assessment to be complete before we take any action, right? We have the foundational measures, as Commissioner Bailey was asking about, if we need to take a tiered enforcement action, but you also want to do that once you have the full picture. And so we've been working as an agency off-property, coupling that with the on-property data to then make a final and informed decision.
Okay. You are pulling me to the finish line. Commissioner Ellison, you got one more.
One more. Are there, so it's groundwater and surface water, and you mentioned 200 facilities, you're monitoring all over the place. Are there, based on your monitoring or just looking at a map, are there other facilities that could potentially be contributing to the contamination at issue in the lawsuit?
Yeah, I think there's obviously, as we hear almost every day, a variety of sources of emerging compounds. So the off-property data, if we're speaking of the Sampson GFL facility, absolutely. There could be other sources, including firefighting foam. We've already been looking at that avenue, speaking to the local officials about the deployment of firefighting foam. That would be PFOS, to get specific. And so there's detections of that compound outside of the facility, but is it potentially tied to the facility or something else? There's not enough data to confirm that as of yet. So we're looking in detail at on-site data where the landfill is, and there's several landfills on the property per se, but also outside the facility to make sure, as one of our department's main areas of focus, that the community is protected if there is an issue and that we take action where needed.
So it's possible that other facilities outside this landfill could be contributing to the contamination?
It's absolutely possible. Where the conversation has evolved, though, is we're developing fingerprints. So like your fingerprint and mine, facilities have a fingerprint. Firefighting foam has a fingerprint. So when we look at the PFAS mixture in an analytical result, groundwater, surface water, we will look at the predominant PFAS and then correlate that with possible sources. And oftentimes that will give you a good indication of where the source property is and where it's coming from. But when you deal with a compound like PFOS, it can come from a variety of sources.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Scott. I know you didn't intend for that, but that was relatively new information for some of us. So
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you for the question.
I said Commissioner Scott, didn't I? Director Scott. Director Rogers, I'll get that one right.
So you have my report. I'll go over a few of the items in the report, and then I have a couple additional items that I also want to address. Trout farm permitting is something of interest. You've been briefed on that. I will let you know that we did go before the Joint Legislative Committee on Agriculture, Natural and Environmental Resources February 6th, provided them an update on where we are with this. As a result of that presentation, Farm Bureau also did a presentation as well on the trout farm permit as well at issue. We continue and had our first meeting of the work group earlier this month. Actually, what is that date? Anyway, we had a meeting and had a good meeting, starting conversation related to issues with the permit and working towards a solution that EPA will be pleased with. Obviously, there are monitoring issues that are a concern to the farmers. We started talking about that, and we also talked about some B&P measures that could be implemented. The idea is that we understand that data is going to be needed, required to convince EPA that we can adjust this permit and continue to protect water quality as we move forward. We'll have another meeting soon at the end of this month or beginning of April. And we're also looking to get on site as well to take a look at the farms process as well as we move through this. Another similar situation, a result of legislation, is a highly treated wastewater provision in the budget, and wanted to give you a brief update on that. That provision provides permit limits for wastewater treatment. We do have a concern with that provision. We addressed that and sent a letter to EPA. It's explaining some of the concerns that we have. Y'all have a copy of that that we put in my report, as well as EPA's response to that. There are some concerns related to protection of water quality and compliance with the Clean Water Act, and we continue to work through that. We do have one highly treated wastewater application in-house. We're working with the applicant to make sure that we continue to stay within our MPDS permitting requirements and abiding by the Clean Water Act that we do. There's a couple quotes in my report from the letter just to explain and present the concerns that EPA has with this highly treated wastewater permit. But we'll continue. We have noticed the legislature as well with EPA's letter, and we'll continue to work with the legislature on this issue. Some good news, rulemaking success on reclassification of some waters in several different river basins. EPA approved that on March 4th and March 6th. So that's good news, and we're glad to hear that that is finalized. We also have a public hearing set for our lab certification proposal that y'all processed recently. That'll be March 20th, and provided that press release to you as well in my comments. One other issue that is not in my notes is Lear Corporation renewal permit is getting a lot of attention. Our inboxes are filled up with concerned citizen requests. EPA, related to that, has requested an additional time, their limited time for review of that permit, up to 90 days. We have also extended our comment period, which was supposed to end March 14th, for 2 additional weeks. We're taking in those comments, carefully considering those comments, and we'll proceed accordingly as we move forward with this permit. Administratively, I know there's still concerns about reimbursements, and I don't know how many times I have to say I'm sorry, but it's not the way we want to operate, and we continue to work through getting W-9s entered into the system so that commissioners can be eligible for reimbursement. We have submitted a group of 4 or 6 reimbursement requests that should be processed over the next day or two, and if not, next week. So those will be done. And I know that I've talked with Commissioner Bailey about her concerns and updated hers on her reimbursement request. Again, this is a result of a new fiscal process and data information base that has been implemented, a new fiscal by the Controller's Office. It was not tested. We've been through this. I've told you this, but we're still struggling with trying to make sure that we're complying with the requirements there and still getting vendors inserted into the process, which you are a vendor now and are reimbursed as a vendor in that process. Related to the April 9th committee, I thank you. We appreciate that opportunity. There are a lot of issues in the Water Quality Committee. I do think this committee in the meeting on the 9th will give us an opportunity for one to get into the narrative or report that this commission is responsible for submitting, so that we can roll up our sleeves a bit, get input and discuss that. And we appreciate that opportunity. The low flow provision that was passed in the budget, reducing flow limits to 75 gallons is another rule that we'll want to move forward as well. And we'll fill out the rest of the agenda as we move forward and make sure that y'all get notice of that. The timing of it, we'll work with the chair on the time of day and just make sure that you have the information you have, but we look forward to that so that we can better manage our May meeting as well.
And let me add to Director Rogers, we'll be reviewing the schedules after this, Vice Chair Duggan and Director
Absolutely.
Rogers, and then the other division directors and myself will be involved, but really wanting to keep things laid out. I announced last meeting, I think we had worked out kind of a master schedule that we were still under development, but as these issues are ebbing and flowing, we're still adjusting that schedule. So as soon as we can get this next iteration done, we can kind of give that out, I think, to everybody. I don't know that we'll post it, but we need a playbook to keep everything leveled out, if you will, and make sure we're having special meetings if we need to, and not keeping the agendas balanced as we can. So that's the objective there. Commissioner Deerhake.
So are you saying a third item on the April agenda is the narrative standard?
No, I was saying the narrative standard study that.
That's what I mean, the
yes,
study.
That's
on the agenda for April too?
Yes, for development, because we have to get the report completed, and we're going to present that in May to the committee and then on to the commission so that we can get it out by June 1 and get it reported to the legislature.
Okay.
Anything related to triennial, if they have a draft, and again, it's good that we put a deadline a little bit on you, Richard. If y'all have draft information of any of these reports, the committee would like to see them. That's the intention right now.
Yes.
I don't know that we will even have time in that meeting to debate them or beat them out.
Yeah.
But we don't want everything to stack up in May either. So if there's preliminary information, I heard that request from you, Commissioner Deerhake, yesterday, to have these reports as soon as possible. We will try to share those.
Yes.
As soon as we
yeah,
have drafts.
we're working on a draft report, and we'll make that available to the committee as soon as possible within the week. So.
But we will not be approving that narrative standard
Because
report.
we have 2 action items, right? Salisbury
And Salisbury may not be ready, but we would like to get
and wetlands.
Salisbury and wetlands, and the third action item could be that low flow condition.
Yeah, my
But it may
understanding
not
on,
be ready yet
yeah,
either.
my understanding on the wetlands is that we did move it through committee yesterday, but we've got to make some adjustments to bring and get approved for the full commission in May. I talked with Commissioner Baumgartner. We'll get those adjustments made and make sure they're circulated as well And if there are some concerns, they can be brought up at the April meeting as well. It might be a good time to review the edits that we've made to the RIA.
Yep. Yep, and we'll post you guys with what the final looks like, but we're still probably a couple weeks from knowing what information will even be ready. But again, the intent was that we opened up as much time on the May Water Quality Committee, since the committee decided to put most of the training into to May, that we have as much time in May there, so to relieve some of the pressure of the other issues at hand. That's the intent. So it'll be publicly noticed, and you guys will all be aware of what's coming up, so. Okay, any other questions for Director Rogers? Yes, Commissioner
A
Smith.
couple of questions. So one related to the high-quality wastewater provision. Can you tell us what type of applicant? I don't need to know the specific name, but what type of
It was a
facility? I'm sorry?
municipal application,
A non-discharge.
non-discharge.
Usually ones that can't go to.
Julie can answer that.
Thank
Hi,
you,
I'm
Julie.
Julie Grib, the Director of Water Resources Deputy Director. So the type of permittee that is interested in it usually could not get an MPDS permit before because they were going to waters that were probably had low DO. And so they were using a non-discharge, but they find that the land is very expensive and it's very hard for them to expand. So the type of discharge you're interested in is trying to probably get around modeling and just have a discharge with those limits and not meet the other Clean Water Act criteria.
Thank you, that's helpful. I mean, my understanding, based on the letter and the quotes provided in the report, is that EPA is essentially saying they cannot approve that high-quality wastewater provision as an amendment to the state program because it's not consistent with the Clean Water Act. Second quick question is Pittsburgh. My understanding is Pittsburgh had to shut down its water system again for a period of time at the end of January due to a 1,4-dioxane spike. Can you tell us, I think it was reported to have originated in Burlington. So I just wondered if you could tell us something about the source of that 1,4-dioxane spike, how long the shutdown lasted, and how that was resolved.
So they did catch it right away. It was one industry in Burlington that caused it. They asked them to stop making that product for now. They are rewritten their significant industrial user permit. I'm not sure it's completely addressed, but it's being worked on. Pittsburgh was able to sample before it hit down the stream area in their intake and able to address it for their water supply. But it did cause quite a bit of havoc and a lot of sampling, and it was very costly to all the cities to pay for that sampling and make sure the citizens were not affected.
Thank you.
Yeah, and let me add this, I think it adds on to the complexity of what we're talking about, is that discharger, industrial discharger, was not in the normal pretreatment program because of the size of the volume, I think, or the kind of chemicals they were supposed to be processing through. And I think Burlington moved quickly to change that or change the permit process. Is that right?
So we believe Burlington always had the right to put them as a significant industrial user if they believe they have a pollutant of concern. However, in that case, they did not immediately qualify as a significant industrial user because they weren't X% of the flow or have a categorical industry. So they just had not really followed up on that industry period. So it did require a little bit of a change and for them to include them on their significant industrial user list.
But better said, obviously, you say it better than I do, but it does point that we'll have that situation as we get into this more and more in a lot of other jurisdictions, because they look at percentage of their flow and they look at the categorical use first. And there are people producing these emerging contaminants.
Always a possibility, yes.
That's underneath that threshold, right? So I'm just indicating it's not as easy as to say it's just one size or one category of dischargers. It could be anybody that would put this in the water. It's not an excuse.
Hopefully not anybody.
It'd have to be an industrial discharger. It would be, yeah. Okay. Anything for, yes.
One more quick one, I think. Just helpful to me, and I think it's appropriate for Director Rogers. Can you summarize really quickly, like the reports that are working through department right now for the legislature and they'll come to the EMC? There's the one on the narrative standards. I think there's something on wetlands going through right now, the reports that are being developed.
I'm not sure about wetlands. I could follow that.
Let me get that for you next time. We have a legislative charge that we have had for many years. We haven't really followed up on it, but I used to put it in the Water Allocation Committee
Okay.
that we review any reports of special interest done by the department. That's a charge from the General Assembly
Okay.
and give comments on those.
Yeah.
So we need to get the list of those reports. I don't know what all reports the department is doing.
Okay, it's not just me not understanding. Okay, all right.
No, I don't think we have the list, and that usually ends with session law. I just don't know the list is compiled. But what I've done in the past is if there's 20 of those reports, they're all significant to us, but we can only do a few, and we did a few back then. So the Water Allocation Committee may get that to do by the end of the year, some of these reports. But that is in the statutes that we do that, and it's not a big deal. Well, stop there. We're supposed to do that, and we'll try to do that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think specifically on 1.4 saying we have a couple reports that the department is to report to the legislature, but we're going to bring that to y'all in May just to provide an update to it. So the EMC does not have a direct role in that, but we'll provide an update to you.
Isn't there one on wetland impacts as well?
I'll follow up with you on that.
Well, look, we need to look.
There
I'm not-
is, there's for I believe it's an annual report, like an inventory of wetlands. At least there used to be. I don't know if it still is, but they used to have to report on the number of acres, what impacted or something. Now, that was 10 years ago. It might have changed.
I'll follow up with you, Commissioner Tweedy, after the meeting, and we'll see what we can do for you.
Yeah, and, we have another report that I can tell you, the wastewater report for the schools, right? The
Yeah.
department is supposed to be doing an assessment of what the wastewater gallons per student or gallons per square foot is for schools for the general. That would be one of those reports where they're giving it, department's giving it straight to the General Assembly, or the ERC, but we may take a look at it, or it may get resolved in legislation before that happens. We don't know. But that's the kind of report. And just Commissioner Tweedy, there used to be three kinds, and Commissioner Deerhake can verify. There was reports requested directly from the department, reports directly from the EMC, of which that narrative standard is one, and then there were joint reports. And I don't see as many joint reports anymore. They're either department or EMC reports, but we'll get you a list put together for that. Commissioner Ellison, yes.
I'd just like to express appreciation to the division on the issue of reports and the narrative standards reports, and especially to Karen. Karen Higgins, I know it's your job and that's why you get the big money, but this is the narrative standard, the requirements of that report from the legislature requires a lot of research. It's a lot of information, and the division's chugging right along, and we appreciate it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else for Commissioner Rogers?
Rich, Director.
Director. Sorry, sir.
I don't want to be in your seat. Thank you
Director
very much.
Abrazinskis, you're next. I got the director first.
So you don't consider that a promotion?
Not a commissioner.
Take what salary he gets away from him.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. Couple quick updates this morning. Again, update on staffing in the division. We have 38 vacancies in the Division of Air Quality. About 14 of those are in the interview stage. So lots of supervisors spending lots of time doing interviews right now, but that's a good thing. We have candidates. So we're excited to make some progress on that. Since we last met, we said farewell to Booker Pullen and Ray Stewart, both retired from the division. Booker was a permitting supervisor in our central office permitting section. Ray was our supervisor out in the Winston-Salem office, combined 65 years of air quality experience between the two. So we're going to miss them. And so that's going to probably be a theme of every one of my updates for the remainder of the year is some of the upcoming retirements. So that's all on the staffing front. On the outreach front, it's the season of the North Carolina Manufacturers Alliance Air Quality Workshops, where the DAQ staff serve as faculty And so it's an important part of our overall outreach to the regulated community. We held the first workshop on March 5th out in Hickory. We have the second workshop in Raleigh next week. So busy on those. Probably the biggest story in the air quality community in the United States since we last met was the EPA's issuance and strengthening of the annual PM 2.5 or fine particulate National Ambient Air Quality Standards. This is something that I've provided briefings on in terms of it's coming to the commission and to the committee for some time now. But EPA did tighten that annual standard from 12 micrograms per cubic meter to 9 micrograms per cubic meter on February 7th. They retained the daily standard at the level that it's been set at. Kind of the bottom line with regard to this new standard, and we reported out in the Air Quality Committee yesterday, some good news. 14 of our 18 monitoring sites are in compliance with this new standard, which is significant strengthening, 25% more stringent. And so we're proud that we're meeting that standard in most of the state. There are 4 sites that are not meeting that standard at this time. However, those 4 sites are not meeting the standard at this time solely due to the impacts of the wildfire smoke that I've mentioned in some of my previous updates here to the commission and to the committee. The Canadian wildfire impacts of 2023 were significant. So a top priority of our division throughout the coming year will be to work on exceptional events demonstrations to submit to EPA to account for those things that were out of the control of the state. And so we will be working on that throughout 2024 with anticipation of then being able to submit a package to EPA by February of 2025, recommending the entire state as attainment. So that's the trajectory we are on, and we'll keep the committee and the commission updated as that work continues throughout the year. In my written remarks, I gave 2 little blurbs quickly on federal actions that have occurred recently. One is related to the Risk Management Plan, or RMP, rules promulgated by EPA on March 1st. Staff are still digesting that. It has potential to have significant impacts to facilities in North Carolina. But again, we're looking at that. Again, that's the program that's authorized under Section 112R of the Clean Air Act. And then there was another update in the written remarks about a DC Circuit ruling on the topic of startup, shutdown, and malfunction emissions. I attempted to summarize about a decade's worth of a very winding path on this topic in committee yesterday, and I think I did it in about 3 minutes. I won't repeat that all here today. Commissioner Carter may want to summarize it in his committee remarks, but I think the bottom line here is the court vacated EPA's SIP call in part. And so I think that the final bottom line on this topic is it appears that, our state rule on this topic, our SIP rule on this topic that's been in place for over 2 decades will remain in place, and we will continue to implement it as written. That's all I have today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for Director Abruzitskas? Okay.
Yeah, this is
Ken
Lyerly.
Oh, Dr. Lyerly. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about the director's remarks. I think one thing I was pleased with was the greenhouse inventory report that was presented. And I just wanted to call attention to the other members of the commission about that report, because I thought it was extremely well done, and I think very thoughtfully presented, and just wanted to make sure Mike had a chance to highlight that for those who might have that interest.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lyerly, and appreciate those remarks. And we are very proud of the staff that pulled that together in the presentation yesterday in committee. If it's something you're interested in, I definitely encourage you to take a look at the presentation that's on the record from the committee meeting yesterday, and it includes a link to the actual report. Excellent work, excellent technical work by our staff. Really proud of that, and can serve as a basis for a lot of different discussions on that topic across the state, within the agency and beyond. So thank you for that.
All right.
Actually, one question,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Can you give us an update on implementation of the air quality permitting, the Title V bonus program, and how that's affecting permit reviews and staff?
Yes, ma'am. So we're implementing the law as written. And so really no different update than what we provided at the last instance of the committee meeting, I think in January. We're implementing it. It's going well. I think the major issue for us is staffing. We are decimated in that section currently from a staffing standpoint. So we're doing what we can with what we've got.
Thank you. Okay, I also see, you're good, Mike. I also see Assistant Secretary Mazemore in the audience. So while she's here, I would love for her if she has anything to add. Do you have anything you want to add today?
Good morning. Just want to add that thank you for your patience and your time and working through our staff. We will respond to all of your needs and interests. We're at your call to move things forward. There are a lot of things that are going on in the background, and we're in close communications, and we'll make everything that we discussed yesterday and today a priority. But continue to have that open dialogue. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Let's start around the horn. I'll let committee chairs report out as we go around, but Commissioner Yarborough, let's go backwards today. Let's lead off on commissioner comments. Anything you want to say or add to the good of the group today?
Grateful to staff, as being one myself for many years till I retired. I know what it takes, and it's just amazing to me what you folks do every day, and we appreciate it. And sometimes it's not obvious that what you do is important, but it really is, and I'm really grateful to you.
Okay. Commissioner Weiss, Chair Weiss.
Thank you, Chair Solomon. I'm going to give the Water Allocation Committee report. We did have 3 information items. One was a nice detailed presentation on a regionalization study that was ordered by the General Assembly, and it is primarily addressing water and wastewater connections in a designated area in the central part of the state. I believe that study is due to the General Assembly by May 1st. We also had an update on the status of interbasin transfer requests. There are currently 2. Fuquay-Varina is for a new IBT, and very recently, Charlotte Water has requested what they're calling a modification of their existing IBT. We also had a very fine presentation on the Central Coastal Plain Capacity Use Area, and I would commend that to any commissioners who were not available or haven't seen it yet. Thank you.
Go for it.
Oh, he's got it. I just want to iterate what I say each meeting. Thanks you to staff for your diligence, patience, and professionalism. Other than that, no other comments.
Mr. Smith.
I have nothing either beyond appreciation for the presentations. They were really well done yesterday.
Commissioner Reardon.
I'll follow the lead on giving our committee update during this as well for the Groundwater and Waste Management Committee agenda meeting we had yesterday. Director Scott and his team did tremendous work. We greatly appreciate the presentation on where we are with making rules as it relate to groundwater for PFAS. That's going to be an evolving topic for many of us for years and maybe decades to come. But thank you for your work there and your staff and what you do in preparation for these meetings. Attention to detail is important, but I think as you've already heard, the work that you do every day affects the lives of every citizen in this state. And so I think that sets the bar high for all of us. So thank you, Director Scott, you and your team. That's it.
Commissioner Gibson.
I'll just add my thanks to the staff for great work.
Mr. King.
Do you have 3 hours?
Not today, you don't. Thank you. You got about 3 minutes, maybe. Go ahead.
Morning, Commissioner. Reardon's job yesterday, his committee was 20 minutes after my 3.5-hour meeting. So you did very well.
Thank you.
But coming out of the gate in November, we certainly saw a change. What does that change mean? Being put as or directed or appointed by the chair to chair this Water Quality Committee, looked at it and what does the change mean and what does it mean to the EPA and what does it mean to Raleigh, the General Assembly statutes, and what does it mean to me as chair and my obligation to this committee that's been appointed, and what does it mean to moving forward and how we collaborate and find a common ground to get the job done. So I was aggressive in January coming out of the gate with Director Rogers and put together a full plan in January based on the past and Chair Smith and the comments that she made earlier in the year, last year or the middle of the year. And taking all that in consideration, Mr. Chairman, put forth an effort to accumulate all of that we're doing today and to move forward in January and then into yesterday's meeting. So I appreciate what your words were to begin with, to start the meeting with the committees. In particular, the triennial review is something that was gone over in November and again in January, and of course, robust conversations with our committee members yesterday. But the 1.4 dioxin, that piece as well was well studied yesterday, but not moved forward for DMC yet. We're still working that out. We're trying to get that out of committee, is what you had mentioned before, and we are working hard to do that. Now, with that, we'll let you know that the cost report, we got some feedback from some municipalities, Greensboro, Ashburn, Reidsville. Those letters concern some of the commissioners, committee members, and we have asked staff to drill down for more of that, and we should have something in May on that. The 10 to -6 on everything in the triennial, that was asked why, and that is a part of the study. The narrative standard has been asked about. We're putting that together as well. The physical analysis spreadsheet for this triennial, it's big, it's broad, it's vague in some places. So we address that too for the draft regulatory impact statement. So there's a lot of things that are going on. But just the 0208, the modification that was discussed yesterday in presentation. So all of this being, Mr. Chairman and committee and commissioners, is being worked on. We're trying to get the 10 to 15 to 20-minute presentations. But again, the staff is really doing a good job. They're spending a lot of time to make sure it's right. And again, working hard, and I'm just proud to be the chair of the committee, but I'm proud of the committee members. We have committee members that, for the first time, agriculture, 2 of those seats are on the committee, and that is important. Environmental studies and planning, that's on Ms. Miriam Deerhake. She's been here a long time, have a lot of knowledge there. And Michael Ellison, vice chair, just a lot, a shout out to him. He's got a background in this politically, networking through the environmental piece, just a huge asset to the committee. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, that's my report. I just thank you for letting me serve. Thank you.
Very good. And I think we've got a lot going on in that committee, and I thank Commissioner Keene for all he's doing. I know you guys know he was a constituent representative across the state for one of the former governors, and he's also been the chair of the Wayne County Commissioners before. So he's done this before, and I've got a lot of confidence in what we're doing in the committee. With that said, we've tried to lay a schedule out because there's some things that'll get right in front of us and we'll forget about the future. So that's why we have a master schedule for all of us. And another reason why, Commissioner Weiss, I like the Water Allocation Committee to kind of be, if these committees get bogged down in the day-to-day, you guys keep us on track to look ahead and make sure we're staying ahead, not just on IBTs, but across the board on our water quality or water quantity type issues and all the tentacles that has. So thank Commissioner Keene there. Let's go to Commissioner Lyerly now, if we can, as I come around. Commissioner Lyerly, any comments?
No comments, just the greetings from California, and appreciate everybody's indulgence of me taking this meeting on a video call.
Very good. Commissioner Ellison.
No comments.
Mr. Deerhake.
As always, my thanks to the department. I also would like to thank Council Zambone for being here this week to support us. We appreciate that. I would also want to thank each of the commissioners for agreeing to serve as a liaison to one or more river basins. We have a complete list now, complete roster.
Congratulations.
And I encourage you to reach out to the basin planners assigned to your basin. They are always very accessible and willing to provide information that you may want. They could give you an orientation. They could help arrange field trips with or without them. I think you'll find that they're extremely helpful, and I encourage you to get to know the basins. Unfortunately, we can't have someone who resides in each of the basins on the commission, but I think this is the next best thing to that. And I believe Commissioner Tweedy probably has one of the basins coming up soon with the Broad, so thank you for jumping onto that quickly. And I will have the Owasso, Little Tennessee, and Savannah in the next 12 to 18 months coming before y'all too. So.
And again, thank you, Commissioner Deerhake, because this was your brainchild 8 or 10 years ago. And I think it's important, not just for basin planning it is, but also we need to know each one of these rivers, because at any moment there could be a crisis or an issue. And it's good to have somebody on this commission that's familiar with each one of them. So thank you for your leadership in that. Any other comments?
No, thank you.
Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, Director Abrazinskis gave a very good report there. And I was glad that Commissioner Lyerly pointed out the GHG report that was given. That was actually probably spent more time on that than anything else yesterday at the committee. It really was excellent and completely thorough. The other two matters on the agenda, we had a concept discussion, further discussion of what we've heard now from the director for a couple of meetings about the revision to the PM fine standard. EPA did promulgate that at 9 ppm, which is going to raise some questions. We think we're in good shape, but we're going to have to see about that going forward. And the only action item we had on the agenda was for the insignificant research and development activities rule. The committee approved that to come forward to the commission in May.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Baumgartner.
Yes, sir. In honor of your opening statement on brevity, I don't have any comments.
Very good. Commissioner Bailey.
So I'm happy to be the last for once. Thank you.
Right, reverse it, so you can have, Commissioner, Vice Chair Duggan gets the last.
That's right,
But you're the
right.
last of the normal commissioners, yes.
Yes. I'm so used to being the first after the 2A commissioners dropped off. Anyway, I do want to thank the staff for helping me personally at times, because I live in New Hanover County, and people reach out to me directly when they find out I'm a commissioner, which might not happen so much in Wake County, but we have issues with Chemours and Gen X, and we also have a lot of coastal issues and questions. And the department has been very helpful in providing me information so I can answer questions or hook them up with the right people to contact within the department when they have questions. So I really appreciate that. And also I'm looking forward to contacting the basin planners for the Cape Fear River Basin. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that soon, because I've talked to some of the other people in my county about what's going on with the river basin. So I appreciate everything staff does to support us and how we communicate with our constituents, you might say, and for all the work that they do for each of these meetings. And I appreciate working with everybody on the commission. I'm so impressed with all the qualifications. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Bailey. Commissioner, Vice Chair Duggan.
Yes, I have been listening attentively, but as you can see by the screen, my computer is undergoing a malfunction, so I'm nice pink color, maybe mauve, I think it is, I'm not sure. But Want to thank staff for all the work that they do. Want to thank the chair and my fellow commissioners for all the work that you do. I have a meeting with Director Rogers tomorrow to go over the calendar, and we'll get working on that calendar and hopefully be able to get something out to you also. We have a roadmap going forward for everybody. Sorry about that. Also, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, the minutes again. We will get the minutes on a better track here for you all, and promise to do that. But that'll be my hopefully brief comments. But thank you all and hope you all enjoy the weekend.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Duggan, Vice Chair. Sarah, Attorney's report. Anything? Thank you for filling in today and yesterday. You did a great job yesterday, and all of a sudden they just went to you and said, "Hey, what's the decision?" But thank you for what you did yesterday. And any comments from you?
I just wanted, I think I've met most of you, but for those of you I haven't met, I'm Sarah Zambon. I am just filling in. The person who has been chosen from DOJ to be your counsel is Ellie Young. She is currently on parental leave, so I'm just filling in for her for the time being. I don't know if who will be back with you for May, if she'll be back yet, or if it'll be me or who. But thank you all for your patience with me as I've been working through these issues. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Did a great job. Thank you. Couple other final comments from me. Thank everybody. My thank you to staff will be this, is process oriented. When we came in and did the orientation, one of the things I wanted was this master schedule. And I know staff, especially Director Rogers, has worked with us to develop that because that keeps the trains right on the track. One of the other things that I talked about was I like briefer presentations. You guys are all beyond the 8th grade and are good readers. I know you've got advanced degrees. So we've done a good job of staff of trying to minimize how long presentations were or not duplicating presentations. I don't want to cut them short, but I do appreciate everybody's ability to cut through information quickly. So getting those out to us early, I do appreciate staff there. One of the small things we did, and we saw it today, the way the agenda is written and the way the requests are made kind of need to be the way the motions are made, right? So I appreciate staff. You guys, most of what you're giving us is almost ready where we can read what the motion is, and that's very important. And then finally, I think the hearing officer's script, that's been something that's been different depending on who goes out. And I know that the department's been working on that so that we have a similar script regardless of who goes out to what kind of public meeting, which are coming up, that we're all saying the same thing about what our purpose is and what our abilities to change things or not change things could be. So I appreciate that very much. I appreciate all that Lois is doing. I know you're kind of a one-arm paper hanger sometimes, Lois, but thank you for all you do for us. And I do have a note that all the commissioners, I think, is that right, Lois, need to see you on their way out? Okay, so stop by Lois's desk over there before you leave. I don't think I have anything else other than to thank you guys. It is a very distinguished group of people here. Yes, civil remission will be at 11. You see why I'm bringing it down right at 10:45. So 15 minutes, I think we're earliest scheduled is 11 for civil remission. So I think that's it, other than to thank you guys and just encourage you. Let's keep working together and work through some of these tough issues. So we're adjourned with that. Thank you.
Thank you all.
On the April 9th.